So I'm a little bit nasally from getting over a cold this past week, but that doesn't stop what we're doing here. So, hi, I'm Courtney. This is something positive for positive people, and today I'm here with Emma. Emma, go on and introduce yourself.
I'm Emma. I'm 40 years old and I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm a white lady who likes men.
Ah, and what is your career field?
I'm a speech therapist.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Just a couple of years actually.
Oh, okay. What'd you do before?
I was a stay at home mom, and before that, I had all sorts of other jobs.
So is being a stay-at-home mom as cool as like guys think that it would be so cool to be a stay-at-home dad? Because all we do is just like cook and work out and play Madden, and then like that would
Right,
be our
right.
only
That's how it is.
responsibilities.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's actually the hardest job I ever had.
Is it just
Being a mom.
is it just because you want to be doing other things, or you feel like you should be
No,
doing more, or what?
yeah, no. I love being home with my kid, but it's a lot of work. And then, the expectation generally is that whoever's staying home is doing all the housework and everything. And that is just, it's a lot harder than it sounds.
Oh, okay. Are you single?
Yes.
Okay. And then how old is your kid?
She's 10.
She's 10? Oh, awesome. Okay. All right. So, what is your condition, Emma?
I was diagnosed with HSV1 in
Mm-hmm.
January this year.
In January this year?
Right.
Oh, okay. So, you're newly diagnosed. Welcome to the club. Glad to have you here. Sorry you're here, though.
It's okay.
How did you find out that you contracted HSV1? I mean, before you got tested, like, what were the signs?
Well, I actually didn't really know, excuse me, I didn't really correlate signs that I was having with actually going to the doctor. It wasn't intentional that I went to the doctor because I had something else going on, and I went to the doctor for that. And kind of in the, during the appointment, I said, well, hey, I'm having this discomfort, genitally. And so the doctor took a look and said, let's do a swab. And when I heard let's do a swab, I thought, uh-oh.
No.
And so she ran the test and diagnosed me with that. And then I also had another test done at the same time and was diagnosed with HPV at the same time. So it was not my best day ever.
Yeah, double whammy. How'd you take the
Yeah.
news?
Um, Not well, not particularly well. HPV, I was really familiar with because I have multiple friends over the years who have tested positive for it and then ultimately tested negative for it. And so I knew that I would have to kind of take some additional steps to have some more testing done. They do sometimes do a biopsy just to make sure that you don't have cervical cancer, because one of the types can cause cervical cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a concern, but really more the herpes was, what really shook me. And I definitely, I realized that I had a lot more judgments in my head than I thought I did around who has herpes and what that means. And I was not really particularly pleased to find that out about myself.
Yeah.
Because I try to be pretty open-minded and non-judgmental.
What were the previous judgments that you had?
Oh God, mostly just around super promiscuity. I don't want to say dirty because it's not necessarily the case. That I wasn't thinking that necessarily, but it was just more kind of like someone who isn't me, really, is what it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a hard a hard realization to take, I guess.
Yeah. So what helped you get past that judgment? Because I mean, everybody has their own perceptions of it beforehand. Like herpes is always the joke of like drinking after someone or catching an STD you can't get rid of. And I mean, I guess it's just because not necessarily it's not deadly, so like
Right.
if that's the one that if you're going to use to make fun of a situation, that would be it. But after you were diagnosed and had that kind of realization, what did it turn into from, oh, you're a promiscuous person, only this certain type of person gets herpes, and then you find out you get herpes?
Yeah.
What
Well,
changed
the
in your
funny
head?
thing, yeah. Well, the funny thing about it is that I knew at least one friend who had it, and I didn't think any of these things about her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it was really more, a lot of us are harder on ourselves than we are on other people. And so I think when it was related to myself is when it got all twisted. And so I think that my first thing I did was I called my friend who I knew had it, and told her that I had been diagnosed. She had the same type, and so, just kind of talking to people, I just started telling.
Was she excited? Was she like, "Yay, I'm not alone"?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. She had a much harder time with it when she was diagnosed. I mean, her first outbreak was really, really hard.
Uh-huh.
Mine, I wouldn't have even known it was there if I hadn't gone to the doctor, honestly.
Right.
And so, yeah, I talked to her, and then I just started outing myself to my closer friends and to my mom.
So wait, one sec, real quick. How did she tell you? What made her confide in you about her
my
condition?
friend. Well, it was a couple years ago, and so in her situation, she ended up getting genital herpes from her boyfriend who had cold sores on his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
or who had herpes on his mouth.
Yeah.
And so, during that time, he actually thought she had cheated on him, and they had been together for a couple years, and so he really kind of freaked out, and she hadn't. And so it was this kind of emotional thing that she was going through at the time, and so that's part of why she told me what was going on. We're really close, and so, yeah, that's how I knew. And then ultimately he realized, oh my gosh, I probably gave it to you, and then he had very different feelings about it. But yeah, so that's kind of how that came out.
All right, I was just curious to know how someone would have approached you about it. Being that you didn't have it, and then someone told you they had it, and now you have it, and now you're going to them. I was just curious to know what that process seemed like. Okay, so go on. Sorry, but you called. You started outing yourself to everyone closest to you.
Yeah, and I really kind of decided to do that because I felt like it normalized it for me. I mean, it was a pretty selfish motive at first. I think just wanting to kind of let it out, and it really did. It helped me just feel better about it. And I think out of the first 10 people I told, 4 of them were positive also. And it's funny though, because 2 out of those 4 said to me, "Oh, well, I used to have that."
Used to.
And I said, "Well, you mean you do have that?" And they said, "Oh, well, I haven't had breakups for 15 years." And I was like, "But that this is like a lifelong thing." And I know one of my friends was actually kind of like, "Well," and I was like, "No, but it's not like, well, it's like it actually is, scientifically proven that it stays in." So it was very interesting. It was enlightening, and it kind of made me feel less. It kind of made me feel better about my own ignorance, because here I felt like I have these, specifically this one friend who's educated and whatever, and she still didn't know, and she had it, and she didn't even know kind of how it worked. And so I felt a little bit better about the fact that I didn't even know you could get it from someone who had it orally. And I had always been really consistent about STI testing before new partners, and thought I was covering myself and my partner, and it just didn't happen that way. So it's interesting.
So when you were first told, like, what was the initial feeling? Was it just that, oh shit, this, I can't believe this happened to me, this wasn't supposed to happen to me? Was that it?
Right. It was oh shit, and I think it would have been different if I had been in a long-term relationship and been diagnosed, because I've been single for several years, and I think it was, oh shit, I have to date with this. Like, how's this gonna go?
Yeah.
So yeah,
okay.
Definitely. And I think I had some initial feelings for at least a couple of weeks around, well, who's gonna want to be with me now? I mean, it's the standard, kind of self-deprecating stuff. And then shortly, I just was like, okay,
like, okay, first off, I'm the shit, so
right, exactly.
Yeah, we all just have to kind of come to that conclusion on our own, at our own pace. Unfortunately, take some people 6 months, take some people 6 years, but we all eventually get there.
Yeah.
Now
I know it's the oh shit to I'm the shit process. Yeah.
So you're telling people, you said you've told there were the first 10 people, maybe the first 4 also said that they may have had it. What about the people who didn't say they had anything? How did they respond to it?
They were very supportive. pity that I didn't really necessarily appreciate. But, I think good-hearted pity. But I think the thing that struck me that was really interesting, once I sort of did more research and figured out about blood testing and figured out about, type testing and all that, when I'd say to people, well, I have this, and, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, like, most people don't know that they have it. Have you ever been tested for it? And, oh, I think so, was the response. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, so I started saying, well, like, generally it's not an automatic test, like you have to ask for it. And out of anyone I've said that to at all, and I've told more people since this time, but anyone I ever said that to, I never got the response like, oh, I should go get tested.
No. Ignorance is bliss. I mean, who wants to put themselves through that? And then something that I've recently come across a lot more recently is that a lot of people who, I have a friend who was recently diagnosed with type 1 and type 2, and she contacted her ex-boyfriend to make him aware and was like, hey, you should go get tested. And he goes to go and get he sees his doctor for like his physical, and he tells his doctor, hey, I want to get tested for herpes. And the doctor told him, oh, don't worry about it, just use condoms and come back if you have any symptoms. So it's like, what sucks in that situation is that she can't figure out where it came from and really get that closure behind it. So it's a weird situation, but I don't know. It's she, because man, there's more to the story, but I don't want to really put her business out there because I do hope to have her on the podcast one day. But she, like I said, just can't get that closure. But
well, I have the same. I mean, I have a similar situation. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. What's the situation?
Well, I mean, the similar situation is I'm not positive where I got it. I think I know, but the person I was dating at the time, I got diagnosed, went and got a blood test and tested negative. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. And, I'd only been with one other person in the last year. And so I think that's probably where I got it. And, I have been in touch with him, and he's never had any genital anything, but he has had cold sores, so it's like, okay, well, that's probably likely where it came from. But, yeah, it's interesting, so.
So how was it when you told him what happened? So he ended up going to get tested and testing negative, but what was his response when you made him aware that you had just tested positive for herpes and HPV?
This was someone I had only been dating a few months, and we were monogamous, and at the same time, I think we were both kind of just trying to figure out, okay, is this a good match? We were just sort of, I don't think either of us were sold on our compatibility on a lot of levels. We get along and we can communicate, and so I think like his response was fantastic. I mean, it couldn't have been any better. I basically said, okay, look, I just went to the doctor and I have herpes, and his first response was like, oh my gosh, oh, I'm so sorry. And then he was like, well, do you think I gave it to you? And I was like, I don't know. Like, and he's like, I've never had anything, any symptoms or whatever. And I said, well, a lot of people don't. Like, I really, really don't know. And it was kind of cool because it was like he instantly acknowledged it could have come from him, and that he'd never had any symptoms. I mean, those two things don't generally go together. I think people get more defensive or whatever. And so I think I'm very blessed that I was seeing someone who was, open-minded and also communicative and not really great about it, honestly. So
good.
Yeah.
All right. And then how was dating after that for you? Were you scared to date or anything? What?
I think it has definitely shifted my game. I don't really have a game.
My
but,
game.
It's shifted, I think, the way that I handle interacting with people. I avoided dating for a little while, and then I decided to kind of rip off the Band-Aid, and I went out with this guy, and I liked him, but I wound up totally not intentionally telling him on the first date, and it was really not good.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of anxiety, and it just wasn't good, but it was also something I felt like I just needed to get over with. And probably freaked him out. He didn't admit to that. And,
How did you tell him?
How did I tell him?
Yeah, it was in person.
Well, say that again?
Was it in person?
It was in person.
Okay.
And we were just talking about all sorts of things. I honestly don't remember exactly. I think we were just maybe talking about kind of life stuff, and we were sort of snuggly, and a kiss had happened, and I was like, okay, like when do I
you
do that
knew
in my
right
brain?
then. When he kissed you, you were like, this is happening. I need to tell him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna, it wasn't going further than that day, but I was also kind of like, all right, well, I have to like figure out how to do this. But my brain, I was not being present at all. I was all in my head thinking like, oh shit, like I got to say something at some point. I should just do it now, get it over with. And yeah, it just didn't go that well.
Okay.
So yeah, I learned my lesson on that one.
And how did he respond for it to have not gone well?
Well, he went on to tell me a story about like semi-recently someone had told him that they had chlamydia or gonorrhea or something, and then he was, basically his comment was kind of like, well, this is a prevalent thing in our area or something, right? Just STIs. And I was thinking like, yeah, but like that's okay, whatever.
That's a hell of a way to bring it up. Like if if he was gonna like ask you, do you have anything, like that's a very creative way of going about it.
Yeah.
That wasn't where he was going, was it?
I don't know. It just didn't go well. And
okay.
He was a nice guy, but like I just didn't do the legwork I should have done. I think before I came out with something so personal. That's my perspective on it. I mean, I should have figured out like what are you looking for? What do you who are you basically? And I think that since then I have done more of the who are you thing, and I've.
Now, when you say who are you saying like who am I, or are you saying who are you to the person that you're?
Who are you to the other person?
Okay,
and I'm just, do I like you? Do I like you enough? Am I interested in you enough to divulge something that isn't your business? Otherwise, and really, so I think since then I've told 3 people. I was only the first person actually after the bad
the disaster.
After the mini disaster. The next person who I went out with, I went out with him twice, and there was an obvious mutual interest and on lots of levels, and so I told him via text.
Oh no.
Which at the time. Yeah, no, I actually, it was good. It was it was actually intentional.
Okay.
I mean, this time I kind of thought it through, and I'm sorry. Actually, this one was on the phone. So yeah, first one was on the phone after that.
Okay.
So we were on the phone, and I said, hey, it seems like there's a mutual interest here, and so this is the deal, And I told him, and so he he took a minute, he was kind of quiet for a second. He's like, okay, well, what do I need to know, And I said, kind of told him some statistics that I had sort of written down in my notes.
Yeah.
And I just kind of said, yeah, there is a chance and whatever. And I also told him I wanted him to get tested. And he was like, well, I don't really care. And he's like, I like you, and let's do this. And so we dated for a few months, and the herpes wasn't, really, it was totally a non-issue, really.
Okay. Now, when you disclose that you have herpes, do you also disclose that you have HPV?
I have not.
Okay.
And I think, I have mixed feelings about it, and I want to be, I feel like I'm a very ethical person, and men can't be tested for it, so I don't know if I'm talking to someone who already has it or not, I mean, they could have it already, and I think the other piece of it is that it's so common, so, literally, I don't know what the percentage is, but a high percentage of my friends, be it, whether they're very sexually active with multiple partners or they've been married for 20 years, have had HPV. And so I have not disclosed that, just because it doesn't seem to me to be something that's a big issue. But, as I'm saying this, it feels like maybe I should give them that choice. But yeah.
No,
so yeah, maybe that will be changing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to just like I just want to know like for personal reasons to help with the podcast because I mean HPV, I hear that it's super common. As I mean, like you said, men can't we don't really get it doesn't show up in men, but it
Right.
is something that I would like to have covered on one of the future episodes too. So I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
That was just for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No.
But yeah, we can definitely stay on herpes if you want, which is a sentence that no one in life ever has probably said before. But the so disclosing for you has never really been difficult. Is that kind of what your formula is? You figure out if the person is worth telling, and then when you do, you go about saying, "Hey, there's a mutual interest. Here's the deal. Here's some
Yeah.
statistics," and then you let them respond with what they respond with.
Yeah, and I have not, I have yet to, outside of my first, I like to call it a reveal. I just think it seems funnier, but because it's not like a particularly fun thing to do. I think outside of that first one, that was just not great. I have not told anyone in person, face to face, and some of that it's me sort of, it's my own comfort level, but then it's also I want to be able to give space, and everybody has different opinions about this, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess I think about it like if someone's telling me, right, I kind of like to be able to like not have that person staring at my face as I'm taking in news and processing it.
Like staring at your
um,
lips to see, like, how can I tell? Like, has anyone else had it and not told me? You get to looking around for like signs or something.
yeah, or just like, oh, they could have the oh shit face, right, and I want
Oh,
someone to
that
be able
oh
to feel
shit
like,
face it's devastating. When you
you've done
tell
this in
someone,
person.
yeah, yes, I've done it in person a few
Okay.
times. The
Okay.
last girl that I was seeing for a while, we were actually in the car, and she was driving. We were at an intersection, and she told me she was abstinent. So I was like, oh, well, this seems like a really good time to tell her. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool that you're abstinent. I mean, that's fine because I have herpes. And her eyes got humongous, and she misheard what I said initially, and I repeated it, and she was just like her eye. She brought her face back to normal. You could just see like how big of a struggle it was. But
Yeah.
when we finished the
Yeah.
date, we were just like, hey, okay, well, let me let's talk more about this. Like, what does this mean for you?
Right.
Like, what does it mean for me? Blah blah blah. And
Right.
then time passes and we end up having sex, and she was okay with it. But
Yeah.
that was just like the oh shit face. It just doesn't. It never goes away. And then there was one time I told my aunt. I was doing this podcast, and she was like, "Oh, that's a good title. That's a good title. What's it about?" I told her, and she was like, "What made you do that?" I was like, "Well, I have herpes." And that oh shit face was not my nephew. Like it was just
Uh-huh.
like that. So yeah, the dreaded oh shit phase. When you can
Yeah.
get
So.
over that, it kind of just becomes funny. So when I told her, I just laughed because I saw it
Mhm.
coming, and it's just a matter of what's this person's oh shit phase gonna be.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good to like. That's nice you found humor in that. I mean, she also wasn't someone you were trying to date,
Yeah.
so maybe that might be easier if I was telling my uncle or something. But I don't know. Like, anyway. So I just kind of decided that like maybe eventually, probably eventually once I get more and more comfortable with the whole thing, maybe be down for doing it in person. But
Hmm.
at this point, I kind of like I like a little bit of distance to where that person can kind of like.
Have their own oh shit moment, and then like come back
Yeah.
from it and respond.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Now,
yeah. So yeah, I've dated one person. It wasn't an issue. There are a couple people that I've gone out with a couple times that I told, and they were actually great with it. I sent them a little information, but I did not proceed any. We
uh-huh.
didn't do
All
anything.
right.
So,
Good, good. Now, my next question for you is being 40 years old and then, being so newly diagnosed here, do you think that you take it a little bit differently being where you are in life now compared to compared to had you contracted it at an earlier age?
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think I think I'm I'm a really different person than I was in my 20s. I
Yeah.
mean, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely think I've handled it much differently probably than I would have at that point. I mean, I've always been pretty centered and pretty confident, and the older I get, the more I don't know, grand that becomes. I mean, I just, I feel very comfortable with myself. And so I think it's one of those, situations where, this rocked me a little bit as far as kind of, wow, okay, I have some thoughts about this that I didn't think I'd have. But as far as like my value as a person or my attractiveness or my, what I want, I mean, none of that's shifted. It's like, okay, I still want to be with someone who I click with and who gets me and who I feel like there's compatibility on a lot of really important levels, and herpes isn't going to change what I want, or the fact that I think I deserve it, and then it's not going to change, my feeling about what I can offer to a partner either,
Right. So, that's good.
And that would have been different if I was younger, I think.
Okay. And then so what would you say you've learned? You mentioned like mindfulness and presence a few times. So I assume you practice like yoga, maybe, or some sort of.
I live in California and I do not do yoga.
What? Who are you? Are you an alien? No.
I mean, I do. I actually do. I have an intermittent mindfulness practice. I've been doing this app. I don't want to plug this, but it's called Headspace.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's for kind of like anybody who thinks like, I don't even know what meditation is, or like, how do you do this? And so I've been doing that for probably about a year and a half, kind of off and on. I'm really consistent sometimes, and then other times I'm not, just like everybody else, I guess. But that really, really helps me. If I'm doing that on a consistent basis, I feel like I'm a lot more calm in general, and I'm pretty calm generally already, but it definitely helps with just, kind of being, you're laughing, being centered, and I don't know, it's good. So that definitely helps.
So biggest, like, what would you say helped you? Well, I mean, the mindfulness, the Headspace app obviously has helped you with being able to cope with it, but do you have any like quick tip or advice to someone who's newly diagnosed, who probably is in your same situation, like around your age range, white, female, interested in men? What do you have for them to help them get through?
I think really, comes down to what we were talking about before, telling people and finding a way to normalize it for yourself. And then also, like, I jumped online right away and just like searched to see if I could find groups, groups of people who have herpes who know how to answer some of my questions. And I think that finding, there are Facebook groups out there, and that are huge, and there are a lot of active members, and that was really helpful for me too. I think like getting information from people, finding links to resources, and just kind of do your thing, like, do what's comfortable for you. If you're not comfortable with telling everybody like I was, then go online and talk to other people who are going through the same thing. I think that can really help, and that definitely helped me kind of chill out. And I think the other piece of it too is, I think this has been a blessing in disguise, and I think a lot of people have this feeling too. It's made me more careful about who I decide to spend time with in the dating sense, in the romance department.
Good. Well, Emma, I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come onto the podcast and share your story. And then I think that disclosing information is good for a lot of people, and then for people to also practice mindfulness. And I try to get the message in there for everyone to identify their own self-worth first, and like come to terms with it, with your condition on your own, before you can expect someone else to be okay with it. So I think you really helped with that as well. Is there anything else you want to say before I send you on about your merry way?
No, I mean, I think that's a really good point. I think that, I've seen a lot of people posting on the groups about, they're not feeling great about themselves, and they're trying to go date. And that is just, whether you have herpes or not, that's just not the best tactic, I don't think. I think it's not going to be successful if you're not feeling good about yourself.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Go build yourself up.
All right. Well, you can go on and say bye to everybody if you want to, however you want. I don't know how you do it, if you're gonna like be cool with it, or if you want to say peace heaps or stay positive.
Stay positive. Have a good day.
Not like we have a choice. All right. Thank you so much again, Emma.
Thanks, Courtney.
All right, so
Bye.
that concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. I need to get an intro. I've been saying this every episode that I need to get an intro and an outro, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I can be contacted at H on my chest on Instagram and Twitter. Um, my Gmail account is just my name at gmail.com. Courtney W. Brame at gmail.com. If you have someone who may be interested in sharing their story, or if you have any feedback, please do not hesitate to reach out. I want to interview any and everybody about their experience, because there's always something different, and there's always someone who's more relatable than that could be more relatable to someone. I want to make sure and get this out to that one person who this can be helpful to. If there's more, then awesome. But please do subscribe on iTunes, download, listen, share, give us a review so that more people can find the podcast, and hopefully it just gets to the right people. So, in the meantime, before we get to the next episode and you guys get to hear my nasally voice, hopefully I won't be nasally anymore, but it's starting to get cold out here, so that's kind of a problem. But next episode, I promise I will have an intro and an outro. Now that I said it, I have to actually do it. So stay positive. Peace.